Opinions. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
I'm Demi. And on today's report, the Supreme Court takes a case that could diminish Roe versus Wade. Deputies in South Carolina are fired over a black man's death. President Biden and VP Kamala Harris released their 2020 tax returns. And a judge approves a multi-million-dollar settlement for Maryland HBCUs.
The CDC mask update is causing some confusion. We'll break it down. Plus, there's been a big change in New York City subway service. Also, Stacey Abrams has big news you're going to hear. And we remember Mary McLeod Bethune.
Plus news on 50 Cent and Chicago Cubs. And, of course, money-making Floyd Mayweather. We have all that and so much more. If you're ready, it's our voice and our truth. So let's get it.
Two South Carolina deputies have been fired for their involvement in Jamal Sutherland's death. Sutherland died in January after he was forcibly removed from his jail cell in North Charleston. The sheriff's office released footage last week, and I just want to warn you, this is graphic. Last week, showing deputies pepper spraying and tasing Sutherland multiple times. Charleston County Sheriff Kristen Graziano announced the firing of Detention Sergeant Lindsay Fickett and Detention Deputy Brian Hoole on Twitter. We're going to show you her tweets. She wrote, "I must weigh the interest of public safety for the community against any incident that creates even the perception of an impairment to the operation of the detention center for the safety of all residents, staff, and our community." A North Charleston City Council member named Jerome Hayward said that he wants the sheriff to step down. He wants her gone too, saying he has no faith in her after watching that footage that you just saw a brief clip of, because again, it is very graphic. It is hard to watch. So I find that interesting. And what he's most frustrated about is that this happened on January 5th. And it's May. And at the very least, I think the city council member is saying she should have known what we all saw.
Yeah, and you know how many times we have to hear these cases or these incidents where the police cannot handle a situation if someone's mentally ill. He was in his cell, right? I believe they were trying to get him out because he had a report for a court date. So if he was not going to exit, why did you feel the need to be so excessive when it comes to the force, right, that was needed? Look, if the time wasn't right, you could have reevaluated the situation. You did not have to resort to this, and this is why it's just so sad. Now, I did read that the autopsy read that it was ruled as an excited state from prescription drugs. No, we saw what happened on that video.
You guys, this was really hard for me to watch. I only watched it because we had to, had to make sure we were knowledgeable today. But this was very, very hard to watch. You know, coming off of what we saw with George Floyd, is just everything right now about Black death is just, mildly triggering. Everything about this screams murder. There's nothing else to it but murder. And, I was reading a lot of comments online, and a lot of people were saying things that they feel like the reason why this is happening over and over again is because police, they look at us Black people as animals, as thugs, and that we don't feel pain. And so, I just can't understand why anybody would think tasing someone with, I forgot how many voltages it was, would be okay. And, also, I was thinking back to the Botham Jean story, that this is why, Brooke, you made a great point. This happened in January. This just releasing now is also why we need to have a law, like I say all the time, that says, okay, you get this amount of weeks after this happens, and the footage has to be released.
Yeah. You're right.
Like the Botham Jean story, it's kind of like, hey, this new law that they're coming up with in his name, in his honor, this might help someone else's, help save someone else's life moving forward.
Yeah, well, so unfortunate. All right, moving on. A second-degree manslaughter case may proceed against a former suburban Minneapolis police officer who fatally shot 20-year-old Black motorist Dante Wright, a judge ruled Monday. Former Brooklyn Center officer Kim Potter, who is white, appeared via video conference for a pre-trial hearing Monday afternoon in Hennepin County District Court. The purpose of such a hearing is to go over the evidence and determine if there's probable cause for the case to proceed. The judge ruled there is and set a tentative trial date for December 6th. Yeah, you're right, there is. She's been on the force for over 26 years. She has years of experience knowing what to do. she had to know the difference between a gun and a taser. We all know that. We saw that video. And if you think about this second-degree manslaughter, some people saying it's not enough. Some people want more. So as they move forward, I don't know if you can change that issue if it goes to a different direction. But at the end of the day, yes, there should be a court date. There has to be some type of justice because we can't bring him back.
I mean, I didn't have much to say about this because when I listen to this story, all I think about is, you know, we still need the murderers of Breonna Taylor. Like, there was equal, you know, it's sad to hear stories like this because at first I was thinking like, you know, stories that get the most attention, it feels like they get the better outcomes. But then I started thinking about Breonna Taylor. That's why I brought her up, where it's kind of like there was equal evidence, there were equal protests, and we still don't have her murderers, you know, haven't had to have any accountability yet. So it's just sad to hear about Black death. Like I said, I didn't have much to say about this because it's just another sad story over and over again. We hear the same thing. It's just really sad.
No, and, you know, there's not much to say about it. It's pretty procedural. And, you know, unless there's a plea at this point, we will be able to cover and watch how this plays out in court.
Yeah, and I just think about it like, imagine me being on the phone with my son saying, hey, Dad, I'm being pulled over. Right off the back, I'm going to be nervous, upset, trying to calm him down. But that's the last time his mom spoke with him, right?
Yeah.
And then the next thing, she shows up on the scene, and then he's gone. Like, it shouldn't be like that.
Absolutely shouldn't. But, you know, again, grateful for the Black Report here on Fox Soul that we can deliver these stories to keep you guys updated. All right, moving right along here. So the Supreme Court on Monday agreed to take up a dispute over a Mississippi law that bans virtually all abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, potentially settling a 6-3 conservative majority court on a collision course with the landmark 1973 decision in Roe versus Wade. The move was announced in an unsigned order with the justices indicating that the dispute would be limited to the major issue of the constitutionality of pre-viability restrictions on elective abortions. The case was brought on appeal by Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Flinch after a federal appeals court sided with the challengers to the state's restrictions. Abortion rights advocates expressed concern over Monday's development. You know, honestly, we talk about abortions a lot on the show, and I keep my same stance. I feel like if you want to have a baby, have a baby. If you don't want to have a baby, don't have a baby. If you want to have an abortion, you can have an abortion. Like, I don't feel like government and lawmakers should have any concern over what a woman decides to do with her body. But back in 2019, I will say that, you know, some states have had their right mind together. I don't know if you guys remember back in 2019, Illinois, Maine, Nevada, New York, and Rhode Island, as well as Vermont, all kind of led the charge in 2019 to try to protect abortion rights on a state level, which I thought was really awesome, as well as, Governor Ralph Northam, he signed those bills in 2020, just last year, rolling back multiple abortion restrictions in the state. So there have been some states that feel the way that I do as well, that a woman should be able to have an abortion. Not every woman, it's not always about like, oh, I just want to just abort a child. Some women know that they're going to have a child into a unsafe, unstable environment, and that's not fair to the child to be born in, I don't know, if a woman doesn't have money or is homeless, that's not fair to a child to be born into that type of condition, in my personal opinion.
And, this case and this ruling and whatever the Supreme Court decides could affect multiple people in multiple states, not just Mississippi, because if the ruling in any way overturns Roe versus Wade, there are already 10 states that have laws on the books that would immediately ban abortion. Not only that, even before this, before Roe versus Wade, there were 9 states that had abortion bans. So we're looking at 19 states that if this decision comes down, there are 19 states that are already prepared to ban abortion based on laws on their books that the previous Supreme Court ruling, the current one that we all live under, Roe versus Wade, that decision is, stops those laws. But if that's overturned, 19 states. President Biden and Vice President Harris have released their 2020 tax returns. The release of their returns follows 4 years in which former President Donald Trump and former Vice President Mike Pence didn't at any point release their returns. The president and First Lady Jill Biden made $607,336 in 2020, and they paid nearly 26% in federal taxes, $151,000. Harris and second gentleman Doug Emhoff made $1,695,000 $1,225, paying nearly 37% in taxes, or almost $622,000. The bulk of their income came from Imhoff's work as an attorney, but it did include Harris's salary as a U.S. senator and money she made from her books. And, you know, it is interesting that this is something that really wouldn't make the news. Typically, had it not been for the past 4 years. It's pretty tradition. And also just to note, these numbers, of course, 2020, they reflect the year before they were inaugurated, but also money made on the campaign trail privately, obviously. You know,
that's true. You know, so it's clear that presidents don't have to do this, right? Right. It's not a law. So I know
it's tradition.
Right, it is tradition, but that's probably part of the reason that Trump was like, "Why? I don't really have to do it." You know, it's just Trump being Trump. If you ask me,
it wasn't traditional, right? In many ways.
Oh, so many ways, right? There's a long list, but yet he was the one that kept attacking former President Barack Obama about his birth certificate over and over again. We had to hear about this. And speaking of Barack Obama, we know his first year when he showed his taxes, he made over $1.7 million. That's what he paid the federal taxes, because he made about $5.5 million, right? And then Trump finally shows his, and it's $750. What's wrong with that? Everything.
Exactly.
Everything
Thank you, Romeo. You guys make such great points here. You know, I thought that this was great. So after President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, they released their tax returns, Jen Psaki came in with just a tiny bit of shade. I wanted to share because I thought it was really interesting. So a reporter was pretty much asking her about, you know, Biden and him releasing. So they were saying, you know, would Biden facing an audit affect the decision regarding the release of the tax returns? And she said, no. She said, no, I would expect that we will continue to release the president's tax returns as should be expected for every president of the United States. And she also says today, and they said this in another statement, today the president released his 2020 federal income tax return, continuing an almost interrupted tradition. And so, Brooke, like you said, it's a tradition. And so I feel like even though they released this, I still feel like I don't understand how Trump was able to get around that. I still want to see.
It brings comfort to
I know
Americans,
it does.
right?
Like, and we always talk about transparency. Like, same.
So that's a good question, because does this bring comfort to Americans in a year where so many have lost so much and have so little? And I think that generally we all expect the presidents of our country to be rich, right? To live a life that the average person couldn't imagine. But do you think it's hard to see, you know, more than $2 million being pulled in by, you know, two people, the leaders of this country, when a lot of people are struggling to figure out where to eat?
Well, I mean, when you kind of put it like that, they can kind of look at it.
I just think we talk about money in such a different way these days. I've noticed a lot of people, a lot of voters talk about money in such different ways. People are very anti-capitalism, and they have always been. But it is a louder conversation. People have different platforms now. And so I saw this and I wondered if it brought comfort, because people felt like, you know, we're going back to tradition, or if it was hard to see.
But then again, I mean, they've earned that. They put in the work to earn that money, too. So they have to look at it that way as well. Really
I mean, I just mind my tax bracket. I know I don't make anywhere near, you know, where the president, but for me, it made me feel like, okay, great. We're back to how things usually are. It's not even about, of course, like you said, Brooke, we expect for the president, vice president to make more money than the average person. For me, as in, I don't even know what American level I fall into, but I personally feel like it did make me feel like we're going back to the norm. Trump broke the norm, and it just made us feel, even if it doesn't matter what the number was, just be honest and truthful about it. You're the president of the country.
Yes. All right. Well, after more than 15 years of litigation, Maryland's 4 historically black colleges will finally receive a $577 million settlement as a result of a lawsuit over underfunding. Now, the deal approved last week will provide $10 million in additional funding toward Bowie State University, Coppin State University, Morgan State University, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore starting in 2023, according to the Associated Press. The settlement will be used for scholarships and financial aid support, faculty recruitment, and more. Now, the lawsuit had accused Maryland of underfunding the HBCUs while developing programs at predominantly white institutions that competed with them, the AP reported. In 2013, U.S. District Judge Catherine C. Blake ruled that Maryland upheld a dual and segregated education system that violated the Constitution. On May 12th, Blake issued an order stating the settlement should rectify the situation. Once again, this is major for HBCUs. they're putting people on notice, man. Colleges and universities, HBCUs are getting their due. They're getting respect. They're having athletes want to go there and sign. They're getting all the attention they need. And it's important. Now, look, newer facilities, they want to build up their campuses, making them look more modern. This is going to support scholarship opportunities, right? Bigger payrolls could attract a better faculty. Sometimes you get what you pay for. So this is big news, and I'm just happy for this.
Yeah, you know, I always talk about how I would have loved to go to an HBCU, and you know, Romeo, you reading all of those amazing things that are going to be coming to HBCUs is the HBCU experience that I would expect to get when I go to a prestigious, historically Black college. But also, I wanted to add in here, you also mentioned that there were some non-HBCUs that stole programs. I just wanted to just share that with you. There was an MBA program back in 2005. This is what they're referring to, and so the Higher Education Commission, they were going to work with Morgan State University on that MBA program, which is the HBCU. They decided to move that to give that funding to the University of Baltimore and Towson University to create the joint program. And so, that I just wanted to share that because we were just thinking like, oh, what did they take away? I want to do a little bit of digging, and it's just not fair. It's not fair. And so I'm happy, like you said, that these HBCUs are getting their just due, getting what they deserve, and Black students are going to have that HBCU experience that we look and see on, and see about on TV. What you see on TV, you want to get that. So I'm happy for this.
Yeah, it's a long time in the works.
Absolutely.
Long time.
All right, so here's Rob D'Arienzo from Fox Atlanta with a reaction to an especially violent weekend with multiple people shot and killed in various incidents. Take a look.
I feel unsafe. Going outside my home, I feel unsafe pumping gas. And it's just the reality. It's almost like the new norm of Atlanta.
Following a violent few days for the city, 2 of Atlanta's city council members now running for mayor say the shootings have made them feel unsafe.
This has to stop, and the violence is just excessive. There's too many guns, and there's too few things for young people to do.
A high number of shootings took place in Metro Atlanta over the weekend. Just this morning alone, within the span of 4 hours, 4 people lost their lives to gun violence. Councilmember Andre Dickens said part of the problem is how long it's taking for police to get on scene.
Right now, the city council, we've observed that call times are too long on our 911 system. People are going to voicemail on the weekend sometimes because there's too many vacancies. Council has given money. The appropriation is there. We have to hire more people, train those people.
This weekend brings this year's gun violence body count in Atlanta to 52, a 50% increase from this time last year.
We need to start addressing the root of what is driving crime. And that's generational poverty. When you've had generational poverty go unaddressed for so long, what you see now is a side effect.
One retired Atlanta homicide detective says the police department is overwhelmed, and whoever steps into the mayor's office next needs to have a clear plan.
Whatever candidate steps up to the plate that wants to be the mayor of Atlanta next, that should be the top of the list. How are they going to address this? And they have to have real strategies.
If I went to voicemail for 911, I would be devastated. I don't know about you guys. I mean, just, oh my God, I don't even want to think about it.